Church, just a couple closing announcements. As Peter mentioned, there's a deeper study into the book of Ruth. If you want to go on our website, go to the discipleship courses. That course that was offered last spring will be there. And again, I'm just amazed that as Matthew opens his gospel and writes about these women's names, Matthew is writing predominantly to a Jewish audience, and this would stir up controversy as they would read these names of foreigners and Canaanites, people that were not to be included. God sees fit to include them in the arrival of the Messiah, his son. And I'm amazed at how God is always reconciling us to himself, but also reconciling people to one another, something that will feature prominently in Matthew's gospel as he continues and as we look at it in the coming weeks. But God is always about making people one. Jesus is establishing a new kingdom, and we see his heart for reconciliation in the Garden of Gethsemane right before he goes to the cross. He's praying for the future of the church to enjoy the oneness that he enjoys with the Father and the Spirit, that the church would be unified. And this is something that we've been looking at over the last year through the Make Us One initiative. For the past year, we've been looking at how the gospel calls us beyond divisions that exist in our world, whether it's racial divisions, cultural divisions, socioeconomic divisions. The gospel calls us beyond those things. And through the Make Us One series last summer, we looked at, or 2 summers ago, we looked at the reality of the gospel, racism, and reconciliation. And over this past year, through the Jonah series, even as we dive into Matthew's genealogy, we see how the people of God had biases and blind spots that they weren't aware of. God would meet them in that place and then lead them to a deeper understanding of the type of kingdom that he wanted to establish. And as we've been doing that work, we also want to be open to what God's doing amongst us today. And so we have partnered with the KOJO Institute, helping us to take a deep look at the diversity of the people's church, but how are we experiencing and embracing the oneness that Jesus longs for and prays for in the garden? And we want to take a deeper look at how racism or bias or unjust systems might be present among us today. So this week, we're going to be inviting you to participate in a survey that's being administered by the KOJO Institute. That's going to come to your inbox on Tuesday if you've signed up for our newsletter. And we simply want to understand where we're at today as a church. How are people experiencing life at the People's Church? We need to hear from you as congregants, because we're a vast body, we're a large body spread out throughout the week in various ministries, and we just want people to share with us how they're experiencing life as part of the People's Church community, and has racism or bias ever been a part of your experience? In order for us to really take a deep move forward, we need to understand where we are today. So I would encourage you, invite you to fill out that survey on Tuesday when it comes out. It consists of about 18 questions. It'll take you about 15 minutes, but we need to hear from our church family. Because as we see in the gospel at the start of Matthew's gospel, he leans into this conversation, even with his Jewish audience, illustrating that God's kingdom is beautiful and rich in its diversity. But as we see in the scriptures and we know is true in our own experience, there is a process of learning what that means and how to embrace it well. So on Tuesday, be looking for that in your inbox.